Welcome to Spooky Bear, where darkness whispers your name. And today, please enjoy.
The quiet ones get chosen. I was born whispering. Long before I knew the word anxiety, I felt its pulse, my heart hammering at the smallest sound, my breath catching like a thread pulled too taut. My voice, when it emerged, was thin and trembling, a wisp no one thought to catch. Teachers said I was shy, classmates said I was odd. I learned quickly that the quieter I stayed, the less they noticed me. I discovered something else too. Every time I shrank into myself, folded my voice into a soft sigh, a door would appear. It was a Tuesday, 4 days after my 15th birthday, when I sat at the back of the algebra classroom, head resting on my folded arms. The teacher droned about quadratic equations, but I barely heard him. My ears were full of aching silence, the silence I cultivated like armor. And then, a door. At the front of the room, where normally there was only blank whiteboard, a slender mahogany door had slid into view. Its surface was polished smooth, a wrought iron handle gleamed. For a heartbeat I thought I imagined it. Then it shimmered like heat on asphalt, and I froze. My heart hammered. I stared from behind my arms. No one else looked up. The other students leaned over their desks, pencils scratching. The teacher wrote formulas on the board, not noticing the door that hadn't been there before. My throat tightened. The door offered escape, away from the noise, the anxiety, the ever-present ache of being watched. I watched the door shiver. Finally, with a tremor in my fingertips, I sipped air through my teeth and slipped from my desk, creeping forward like a thief. Every breath stung. When I reached the door, I whispered, "Hello?" It swung inward with a breathless click. Shock grounded me. My instinct screamed to run back. My father's belt always hung in our hallway closet, ready to teach me obedience. But the door's dark interior beckoned, an archway of flickering candlelight, spilling into the white classroom like spilled ink. I pressed my palm to the frame, the cold iron welcoming me. I paused, looked back at the dull rows of desks, the teacher's mottled tie swinging as he wrote. No one glanced my way. I stepped through. I found myself in a corridor of stone, torch sconces flaring gold against black walls. The air sang with distant chimes, like countless voices muted by a screen. The floor was flagstone, damp under my sneakers. Ahead, the hallway stretched into darkness, broken only by doors identical to the one I'd entered, polished wood and iron handles, each set at regular intervals. I turned to retreat, only to find the door gone. The wall stood unbroken. My pulse hammered. I pressed my fingers to the stone, feeling its rough grain. A whisper brushed my ear. "Welcome, quiet one." No voice, just the echo of a promise. I swallowed. Then the whisper was replaced by another sound, a faint dripping, like water falling into a deep well. I followed it, skirted more doors, until I reached a small alcove, where a single drop fell into a basin of black water. The reflection was not my own, but a ripple of movement, long-lashed eyes staring back. I recoiled, tripping, and the image vanished. There was only silence, and the distant click of handles turning. I pressed my back to the wall and considered my options. Each door had a keyhole, no keys in sight. The corridor sagged with quiet so dense it felt like sorrow made flesh. I whispered, "I don't want this." My voice cracked. Behind me, a door clicked open. I whipped around. Light spilled out, revealing a small creak at the latch. The door didn't move on its hinges. Instead, the corridor swallowed the hinge, as though the door had grown out of the wall. My foot fell through, dampness rising around my ankle. The stone had given way, revealing a dark liquid that lapped at my shoe. I scrambled backward. The door slid shut, sealing the corridor in silence. Panic rose in my throat. I sank to my knees, pressed my palms to my ears. The corridor had rules: stay quiet, and it would yield its secrets. Speak, and the doors would slam shut, and worse, the darkness would come. Struggling to calm my breath, I remembered the chalkboards of algebra class, filled with letters and shapes. I closed my eyes and began to count. 1, 2, 3, 7, 14, 21. On 22, I exhaled and heard it, faint footsteps coming toward me, behind a door somewhere in the corridor. Not hurried, but steady, patient. I ran, feet slipping on damp stone, hands scraping walls. I fled until the corridor ended at a vast hall. An archway stood at the far end, beyond which poured the faint luminescence of an unseen dawn. The floor here was a mosaic of dark tiles, forming a spiral that drew the eye ever inward. In the center of the spiral stood the door, polished mahogany, iron handle curling in a silent invitation. I pressed my shaking fingers to the wood, felt the iron cold. My lips moved. "I'm sorry." The door swung inward slowly. Light blinded me. I found myself back in the classroom, just as I'd left. The whiteboard glared sugar bright. The teacher had his back to me. Students bent over their equations. My deskmate, Ashley, looked up. "You okay?" I swallowed. "Yeah. I'm fine." When the bell rang, I dropped my books and fled, not daring to look at that empty space on the board where the door had been. Over the next days, I noticed subtle changes. Each time I held my tongue, declining to speak up in class, remaining silent when teased. The world around me dimmed slightly, grew softer, more alive. Streetlights sharpened into halos, traffic sounds receded to gentle hums. My own heartbeat a lullaby to my thoughts. And doors appeared. Not physical doors, but thresholds. A wrought iron gate at the park that had always been locked, unlocked when I passed. The pantry door in my kitchen, hidden behind shelves, opening to reveal rows of glass jars I never stocked. Each place whispered promises of refuge. You step through and be still. I lingered at these portals, tasting the hush, craving the stillness they offered. My mother worried, her voice a clumsy hammer that shattered my peace. I retreated from her, finding comfort in silence. One evening, Jonas, my older brother, cornered me in the living room. "You're disappearing," he said. "You barely talk. What's happening?" I looked away. "I just need to breathe." He frowned and left with a curt, "Okay." Mom found me later in the kitchen, palms braced on the counter. "You need to eat," she said. "Talk to me." I knew what would happen if I opened my mouth. The corridor would appear, and I'd be lost again. "I'm fine," I whispered. The door between us closed. I slipped upstairs. That night, I dreamt of the corridor. Doors lined like specters. Torches flickering in the mist. Footsteps behind me, growing louder. I fled until I came to the spiral hall. The central door stood open. Beyond, white light. I stepped forward. Morning found me in my bed, drenched in sweat. But something had changed. At the foot of my bed, the bedroom door stood open. An iron-bound portal I'd never noticed before, its threshold glowing faintly. I couldn't resist. I rose, pad of my feet silent on carpet, and crossed into the door's frame. The world outside the door was perfect quiet. No hum of appliances, no traffic, no wind. I found myself in a garden of pale flowers, their petals broad as hands, unmoving. A path of white gravel wound between marble statues of figures with lips sealed, eyes bowed. I wandered deeper. In the center stood a black pavilion, doors swung wide. Inside, rows of empty chairs faced a single podium. On it rested a tome, bound in skin-white leather. I flipped the pages, blank. A gentle voice drifted through. "Welcome, quiet one." Not my own voice this time, but older, disembodied. A shape materialized in the doorway, a woman in a gown of moonlight, her face hidden by a veil. "Who are you?" I asked, voice trembling. She raised a pale hand. No words, only the hush pressing in, urging me to sit. I obeyed. In that chair, I felt a binding calm, a promise. Here, you may never speak. Here, you may simply exist. The more I sat, the lighter I felt. My chest unwound. The tremor in my hands stilled. My thoughts thinned into silence. The world outside vanished. I was only the chair, the podium, the hush. The veiled woman knelt at my feet and touched my hand, her skin luminescent. "Stay," her gesture implored. "I be still." I closed my eyes. In that silence, I felt at peace. The terror, the longing, the wounds of the quiet game, they all dissolved. But a voice slipped alongside the hush, my own faint whisper. What of life? I opened my eyes. The pavilion shimmered. Chairs stacked themselves into monoliths. The veiled woman rose, her form stretching, twisting like smoke. Her voice, when it came, was papery soft. Silence is freedom, and you are free. Behind me, the corridor walls breathed. Footsteps echoed in the garden. The statue's lips cracked, stones splitting like a fragile promise. They moved, turning toward me, eyes blazing. The hush shattered. Fear roared in my veins. I leapt from the chair and bolted through the pavilion doors, down the gravel path, back to my bedroom, to the now shut door that led home. I spilled onto my bedroom floor, pants soaked with gravel, heart pounding. The iron door clanged shut behind me, and vanished. The bedroom door was normal again, painted white with brass knob. Dawn seeped through the blinds. I ran my fingers through my hair, gasping for real air. I heard my mother calling me for breakfast. She'd left a plate outside my door. I shut the window's memory of the garden away with a forceful blink. At the table, Mom and Jonas watched me. "Rough night?" she asked. I nodded, unable to speak. Days passed. I tried to talk, but my voice felt like betrayal. I half smiled at Jonas, but no words came. At school, I raised my hand. No answer. The corridor door never reappeared, but I found hidden thresholds everywhere. A stone arch in the park that glowed, a mirrored panel in the library, a bramble-overgrown gate in my backyard. Each promised quiet. I didn't dare step through again. But sometimes, when the world screamed too loud, I touched those frames with trembling fingertips and listened for the hush that had felt like home. One evening, I found a final note on my desk, in elegant silver ink. Dad's handwriting, impossible since he'd been gone years. Whenever the noise breaks you, the quiet ones get chosen. I closed my eyes. I remembered the child I'd been, small, silenced, hiding from burn and belt. I remembered the hush scattered with terror. I had a choice: remain in this world of noise, of voices, of wounds widening in the press of the day, or slip through the door, into a silent expanse that offered peace at the cost of my life. I stood before the bedroom door. My hand hovered over the knob. My heart thundered. Behind me, the world waited, laughter, tears, love and pain. Before me, the hush, profound, infinite, eternal. I drew a breath and turned away, because some doors, once opened, never let you speak again. I would face the noise, carry my scars in my voice, and refuse to be chosen by the silence.
Sleep is a luxury, and you've just run out. Please like, share, and subscribe. We'll be waiting for you, if you dare.